In New York's Central Park, a female jogger had been running for just over half an hour when she was suddenly surrounded and assaulted by a group of well-off young individuals. These assailants were not from broken homes but attended expensive private schools. Some were baseball players, others members of a brass band. A shocking act was not driven by radical behavior or drug influence but merely for amusement, nearly costing the 28-year-old woman her life. Simultaneously, 400 kilometers away from the capital at an international airport, a commercial airplane crashed during a snowstorm. A man heroically distributed life jackets to passengers who had fallen into the water to ultimate his life in a rescue effort. These two starkly different ends provoke deep reflection. What drives some towards evil while others sacrifice themselves for strangers? Stoic philosophy suggests that human actions are primarily driven by two forces: avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. Behind this seemingly simple mechanism lies a complex interplay of psychological and moral decision-making processes. Many wish to change their lives but are halted by immediate discomfort. From a Stoic perspective, true change requires addressing the root causes, not just symptomatic relief. Procrastination is a prime example. People delay actions believing immediate discomfort outweighs future relief. However, when the pressure of inaction becomes unbearable, the balance between pain and pleasure shifts, prompting action. By understanding and utilizing the Stoic principles of pain and pleasure, we can not only control our behaviors but also shape our destinies. If these forces are misunderstood, our future may seem as though it is controlled by external forces, making us akin to animals or robots, a harsh analogy, but consider why we often fail to do what we know we should. What causes this hesitation? Is it fear of failure or dread of the unknown? Each decision we make involves weighing pain against pleasure. We often prefer to protect ourselves from loss rather than venture into the uncertain joys of the unknown. Understanding this aspect of human psychology can help us better navigate our life's direction. Many people frequently question the twin forces of pain and pleasure. Why, despite experiencing significant suffering, do some people remain unchanged? The answer lies in the fact that the suffering has not yet reached a tipping point, and it is insufficient to compel them to alter their established behaviors. If you have been shunned for a certain behavior and later changed it, it is likely because the pain of loneliness reached your tipping point, and you no longer wanted to endure that pain. Pain, in this sense, actually serves as it pushes us to take new actions in pursuit of happiness, thus leading to different outcomes. This phenomenon is not limited to interpersonal relationships. You might have experienced it physically. For instance, you might have decided to lose weight after struggling to fit into airplane seats, wear old clothes, or breathe easily while climbing stairs. What motivated you to make this decision? Was it the desire to return to the comfort of your pre-weight gain state free from physical pain? Both pain and pleasure vary in intensity. For example, humiliation is a severe form of pain, while mere discomfort is milder. Regardless of the intensity, these sensations are crucial considerations in our decision-making processes. Similarly, pleasure plays a role akin to pain in influencing our actions, which are often initiated by the anticipation of pleasure. The strength of pleasure also varies and is subjective. For instance, whether you stop to listen to a symphony playing Beethoven in the park during lunch may depend on your personal taste in music. If you love classical music, you might stay and listen, ignoring hunger. If you prefer pop, you might walk on. And if you are very hungry, even a love for classical music might not keep you there for long. These dynamics of pain and pleasure shape the life trajectories of individuals as diverse as Jeff Bezos and Malala Yousafzai. While it may seem incongruous to compare them due to their differing values and interpretations of pain and pleasure, the most critical lesson of life is to understand what makes us happy or causes us pain. And these personal insights shape our behavior. Jeff Bezos' life is driven by the pursuit of pleasure. He dreams of having the largest fleet and the grandest office buildings, aiming to amass great wealth. His greatest pain comes from being second best, which for him equates to failure. This fear of failure propels him forward, often more strongly than the pursuit of pleasure. How do pain and pleasure influence our lives? Consider addiction. Our perception of its pleasures or pains profoundly affects our decisions. This principle applies equally to drinking, smoking, relationships, and even trust. If you're a doctor, you might have chosen your profession because it promised happiness. Many doctors find joy in alleviating pain, curing diseases, saving lives, and the respect these accomplishments garner. Musicians often commit to their art for the sheer joy it brings, and entrepreneurs find pleasure in making decisions that create jobs, produce needed goods, and improve living standards. Reflecting on famous artists like John Belushi, Freddie Prinze, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis Presley, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison, we see how they turn to substances to escape pain, only achieving temporary relief at the cost of their careers and ultimately their lives. What can we learn from these examples? If we associate significant pain with any behavior or habit, we will do everything possible to eliminate it. By harnessing the forces of pain and pleasure, we can profoundly change our lives. Humans are the only creatures on Earth with a rich inner life, typically defining themselves and deciding future actions based not merely on external environments, but on personal interpretations and perceptions. Unlike other beings, humans possess a remarkable ability to transform any object or idea into something that brings them joy or usefulness. One of our most powerful capabilities is merging personal experiences with those of others, creating unique lifestyles that manifest in various aspects of life. Thus, humans alone can modify neural connections in the brain, transforming pain into pleasure or vice versa. We cannot simply dance to the tune of changing circumstances, as doing so would relinquish control over the direction of our lives. It's akin to a public computer that anyone can program. Whether consciously or unconsciously, our behaviors are influenced by the dual forces of pain and pleasure. These influences might stem from childhood friends, parents, teachers, friends, or heroes in movies, subtly shaping our character and actions. Sometimes a single comment, a school event, a victory in a competition, an embarrassing moment, or academic success can have profound impacts on us, shaping who we are today. From this we might agree that are governed by our perceptions of pain and pleasure. Reflecting on the past, can you recall how certain experiences had influenced you? How did you interpret these experiences at the time? If you were single, did you view marriage as a joyful adventure or as a burdensome duty? When sitting at the dinner table, did you see eating as merely refueling your body or as a primary source of joy? Advertising and public relations firms on Madison Avenue in New York excel at influencing how people perceive pain and pleasure. They understand that changing consumer behavior depends less on rational product evaluations and more on eliciting emotional responses. These firms employ music, imagery, and color among other tools to trigger consumer emotions, aiming to achieve sales objectives. For example, they might display images of a product when consumer emotions are at a peak, linking the product with positive emotional states. PepsiCo has mastered this technique, wresting market share from Coca-Cola. They drew inspiration from Michael Jackson's performances, using his voice and dance on stage to excite audiences, then cleverly transferring the excitement to Pepsi. Although Jackson did not drink the Pepsi, the ads cleverly utilized his image to shift fan enthusiasm from the icon to the product. This method has its roots in Pavlov's experiments at the end of the 19th century, where repetitive association between stimuli and responses built strong psychological links. The advertising industry can create assertions of joy in consumers' minds, making them overlook potential displeasure as associated with a purchase. For instance, ads for Hyundai, Toyota, and BMW convey distinct lifestyles and values, attracting specific consumer bases. Similarly, fashion brands like Levi's have crafted a distinctive, stylish image through ads for their 501 jeans, significantly boosting sales. Moreover, advertising techniques are also widely applied in the political arena, where strategists like Roger Ailes have used them to help politicians win elections by shaping unfavorable images of opponents and stimulating voter dissatisfaction. These methods of altering public perception are not limited to tangible products, they apply equally to intangible ones like political views. This demonstrates the powerful impact of advertising and PR, which can shape public perceptions and thereby control behavioral patterns. We can harness this power to autonomously change our behaviors by associating pain with unwanted actions and pleasure with desired ones. Through consistent practice, This can lead to natural behavioral changes, not only a function of advertising but also a psychological strategy that individuals can master and apply. Most people tend to focus on immediate benefits when making decisions, often overlooking the long-term consequences. This approach typically results in short-lived happiness followed by prolonged suffering. In fact, all meaningful achievements require enduring some discomfort. We must overcome immediate fears and temptations and focus on the future, guided by our values and standards. Remember, no external event can directly cause our happiness or suffering. It is our perception of these events that truly affects us. If we concentrate only on the present, it becomes difficult to secure a stable future. If we desire lasting happiness, we must be willing to endure temporary pain. For example, achieving a fit physique requires consistent exercise, which might initially feel unbearable, but over time can become enjoyable. Whether in career, relationships, self-improvement, health or financial situations, all achievements necessitate enduring some level of discomfort. So how can we withstand this discomfort and motivate ourselves to reach our goals? The first step is making a decision followed by continuous self-adjustment, eventually transforming pain into pleasure. The recent savings and loan crisis in the United States serves as a prime example. It potentially saddles all taxpayers with up to $500 billion in losses, illustrating the grave areas of focusing only on short-term gains without considering long-term consequences. This economic pain is likely to be borne by us all adults, children, men, women, and even future generations. The issue originated in the late 70s and early 80s, when banks and trust companies primarily dealt with businesses and individuals, with their revenues largely coming from the interest on loans they rate at the higher amount on deposits. However, as large corporations began to facilitate their own loans at lower interest rates, banks gradually lost their primary lending business. Simultaneously, American consumers started to prefer direct loans from car companies for automotive and major appliance purchases due to lower interest rates, nearly halting bank consumer lending. As banks faced these challenges, their last resort real estate loans was also blocked by high interest rates and inflation. To survive, banks had to lower their lending standards, leading to numerous bad loans. These issues eventually spiraled into a crisis that damaged not just consumers and businesses but also banks and the government. Following a series of poor decisions, vast amounts of capital were mistakenly funneled into construction projects the market couldn't bear, creating an oversupply that led to a market collapse. When the projects failed, developers and banks were unable to repay debts, leaving taxpayers to shoulder the economic burden. This sequence of events serves as a poignant lesson about short-sightedness and the neglect of long-term consequences. It not only reflects failures in financial policy making but also misinterpretations of pain and pleasure at personal and collective levels. By gaining a deeper understanding of these concepts and applying this knowledge in our daily lives and decision-making, we might prevent similar mistakes from occurring. People often resist change due to a fear of the unknown, despite dissatisfaction with their current circumstances. As the saying goes, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. This reflects a tendency to stick with what is familiar rather than risk trying something new, even if the current situation is far from ideal. To improve personal relationships, one must overcome the fear of rejection. To succeed in entrepreneurship, one must risk failure. In fact, most endeavors worth pursuing require us to challenge conventional thinking and face the fear of the unfamiliar. We are often bound by fear, preventing us from realizing our dreams. For instance, some people are afraid to fly because they fear a plane crash, a fear that may stem from past negative experiences, unwarranted speculation about the future, or media influence. It's important to understand that we should live in the present, not be constrained by past experiences or future imaginations. Nothing inherently causes pain, it is our anticipation of pain that causes distress. Now let's take action. First, list for actions you have been procrastinating on but need to address immediately, such as losing weight, quitting smoking, reconciling with a former friend, or reconnecting with an old friend. Next, for each of these actions, answer the following questions. Why haven't I acted before? Were there any difficulties at the time? This will help you identify the reasons for your hesitation, which are often linked to avoiding pain, hence the procrastination. Then write down the reasons why delaying these actions has brought you pleasure. For example, if you think you should lose weight, why did you eat 3 hamburgers, a large pack of fries, and a half dozen sodas? Is it because the pain of eating less to lose weight seems unbearable, while consuming a large amount of food brings you joy? If you want to see long-term changes, you need to find the methods that bring pleasure without negative consequences. Consider the consequences of not making immediate changes. What will happen if you continue to consume high amounts of sugar and fat? What are the consequences of not quitting smoking? What if you don't make that phone call? What impact will the lack of exercise have on your health? Think about the problems that might arise in the next few years. What will be the cost in terms of relationships, self-image, and finances if you do not change? Finally, imagine all the joy that taking these actions could bring. List these positive outcomes in detail to motivate your change. You might feel excited thinking that you control of your life, gain more self-confidence, improve your health, enhance your relationships, and perform better in all areas of life. Your life could start improving from now and continue to get better over the next 2, 3, 5, or 10 years as long as you take action. This exercise can help you better understand how pain and pleasure affect your life and encourage you to take immediate action. Life is short and not to be wasted. Now is the best time to act. By following these steps, you can harness the power of pain and pleasure to shape your behavior and destiny.